The hum of the air conditioning filled the quiet kitchen as Emily stared at the half-empty cup of coffee in her hands. It was a Tuesday morning like any other. The sun filtered through the blinds, casting stripes of light on the tiled floor. But something felt different. Emily couldn't shake the gnawing restlessness that had been growing in her chest for months. Emily and her husband, David, had been married for 10 years. They shared a comfortable life in the suburbs, with a spacious home and a predictable routine. David was a reliable husband, a man who paid bills on time, remembered to mow the lawn, and always asked how her day was. But their conversations had become mechanical, their connection a shadow of what it once was. It was on one of her errands to the local library that Emily first met Andrew. He was standing by the fiction shelves, flipping through a novel, when their eyes met. He smiled at her, a crooked, boyish grin that made her heart flutter. "Great choice," he said, nodding at the book she was holding. "Oh, this?" Emily glanced down at the cover of the mystery novel. "I've heard good things about it." "You won't be able to put it down," Andrew replied. "I've read it twice." They ended up chatting for nearly 20 minutes, discussing favorite books and authors. Andrew was charming, with an easy confidence that drew her in. He mentioned he was a freelance photographer who had recently moved to town. When Emily finally left the library, she realized she hadn't felt that alive in years. Over the next few weeks, Emily found herself returning to the library more often than usual. She and Andrew crossed paths repeatedly, their conversations growing longer and more personal. He told her about his travels, his love for capturing fleeting moments, and the loneliness of moving to a new place. Emily, in turn, opened up about her frustrations, her longing for something more. One day, as they stood by the park near the library, Andrew looked at her with an intensity that made her stomach flip. "Emily," he said softly, "I feel like I've known you forever. You're the only person who makes me feel at home here." Her breath caught. She knew she should walk away, but instead, she found herself saying, "I feel the same way." Their affair began slowly, almost imperceptibly. It started with stolen glances, fleeting touches, and late-night texts. Andrew's passion reignited something in Emily she thought she'd lost. When they were together, the world seemed brighter, the air electric. They met whenever they could, in secluded corners of the park, quiet coffee shops, and once, daringly, at a small motel on the edge of town. Emily knew it was wrong, but she couldn't resist the way Andrew made her feel. Desire, alive, free. At home, Emily's guilt weighed heavily on her. David remained oblivious, his trust in her unshaken. He continued to be the same kind, dependable man he had always been. One evening, as they sat across from each other at the dinner table, David looked up from his plate. "You've been distracted lately," he said, his tone gentle but probing. "Is everything okay?" Emily forced a smile. "Just tired," she replied, avoiding his gaze. "Work has been busy." David nodded, accepting her answer, but his concern lingered in his eyes. As the weeks turned into months, Emily's double life became harder to manage. She began to dread the inevitable, the moment when she'd have to choose between the life she had built and the love she had found. Andrew's patience was wearing thin too. "Emily," he said one evening as they sat in his apartment, the city lights glowing outside the window, "I can't keep being your secret. I want us to be together. For real." Tears filled Emily's eyes. "I don't know if I can leave him, Andrew. David doesn't deserve this. He's a good man. But do you love him?" Andrew asked, his voice firm but pained. Emily hesitated. The silence that followed was answer enough. That night, as Emily drove home, her mind raced with questions she couldn't answer. How had she let her life spiral into this? Was it possible to love two people in such different ways? When she walked through the door, David was waiting for her, his face serious. "We need to talk," he said. Panic gripped her chest. "What's wrong?" David took a deep breath. "I know something's been going on, Emily. You've been distant, and I've noticed the way you've been slipping away. Are you seeing someone else?" Emily's heart sank. She opened her mouth to deny it, but the words wouldn't come. Instead, she nodded, tears streaming down her face. David looked away, his jaw tightening. Why? He asked, his voice breaking. Was I not enough for you? It's not about you, Emily said, her voice trembling. You're a wonderful husband, David. But I felt so lost, so empty. I didn't know how to tell you. For a long moment, neither of them spoke. Finally, David said, Do you love him? Emily hesitated, then whispered, I think I do. The days that followed were filled with painful conversations and difficult decisions. Emily and David decided to separate, their parting bittersweet. David's heartbreak was evident, but he told her he wanted her to be happy, even if it wasn't with him. Emily moved in with Andrew, their relationship no longer a secret. But the transition wasn't as seamless as she had hoped. The weight of her choices lingered, and she struggled to reconcile the love she felt for Andrew with the guilt of hurting David. One evening, as Emily sat on the balcony of their new apartment, Andrew joined her, wrapping an arm around her shoulders. Do you regret it? He asked softly. Emily looked out at the city lights, her heart heavy but resolute. I regret the pain I caused, but I don't regret finding you. You've shown me what it means to feel alive. Their journey was far from easy, but Emily and Andrew worked to build a life together, one founded on passion and honesty. Emily knew she couldn't erase the mistakes of her past, but she hoped to create a future where love, in all its messy imperfection, could thrive.